The following program was paid for by Templar Real Estate. The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of WMTR. As always, it is advisable to consult a professional before making a major decision. It's time now for the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Here's your host for the program, Joseph J. Zoppi.
Hello, welcome to the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. My name is Joseph J. Zoppi, a real estate investor, consumer advocate, author, and managing partner of Templar Real Estate Enterprises. I'm still recording this show from home and getting more comfortable by the week recording it from home, so I might continue indefinitely instead of going into the studio. So we'll see where it goes, and we'll take it from there on that. You could also reach us at TemplarCashForHouses.com. That's TEMPLAR cashforhouses.com. Or you could call us at 973-315-7990. Again, that's 973-315-7990, and we could answer any questions you may have, any queries you have on selling a house fast for cash, anything that you want to talk about. We're here to help you and provide a service for you. My company is a real estate investment firm. We buy houses for cash. We buy apartment buildings. We do joint ventures with other real estate investors. We loan money for rehabs and also provide some transactional or gap funding as well. We work with individuals that want to invest with us in single-family houses up to apartment buildings. We do not speculate, and we're very protective of our money and our investors' money. I'm not a real estate agent, and we're not a brokerage. But I have individuals on staff that are agents and that could sell through the multiple listing service if that's what you would like. The show will go over everything there is about real estate and those things that impact real estate. We'll talk about our rehabs, some of our investments, what went well with our rehabs, what did not go well, some of our challenges, and how we corrected those. We'll talk about the economy and interest rates. We'll discuss trends in real estate market. Real estate is one of your biggest investments, so the more you know about real estate, the better it is for you. Again, this is only my opinion. What I'm providing to you is based on my experiences and opinion, but you have to remember that you need to do your due diligence with anything you do. You know, if you have to research something, you work with a CPA or an attorney, you still need to do some research on your side and, challenge that person, ask them questions. And in the end, I think it's the best thing to do. As I've said before, you have to understand, if you read an article, where that person's perspective is. Is it pro an idea or con an idea against it? So you need to look at all the different scenarios in terms of other balancing opinions to get something that you're comfortable with. Do not just go with reading one article or just finding some information on one thing. That's very, very important. When we do our due diligence for anything, we look at a lot of different scenarios. When we're looking at risk for our investments, we look at different scenarios, what could go right, what could go wrong, so on and so forth. And I highly, highly recommend you do the same thing. Whether you have a financial advisor or someone else doing your money or anything else, contractor, whatever the case may be. And speaking about financial advisors. So again, you have to understand, financial advisors usually make money when they invest their money in the stock market or mutual fund, whatever the case may be. So as I've said on numerous occasions, and I think a lot of people know, I'm very anti-market for the most part, and but I try to give a positive and contracting argument for it sometimes. My view is it's a little bit of Russian roulette, and you could put your money in and it eventually will grow, but there's a lot of downs and ups, and the consistency is just, I don't see the consistency. You might have a long consistent run of 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, but when the market comes down, like I've said before, it's going to come down and stay down for a while, and then it has to go back up, and the funds have to be replenished and built up again. So that's the reason why I'm not too big on it. I used to trade a lot, as I've said before, and I've been on both sides of it, and it just is just not for me anymore. What we drive on at Templar is consistent returns, and I think in the end, consistent returns beats out any of these scenarios where it's going up 20% and then afterwards it might go down 30% and then back up 20% or whatever the case may be. Right now there's a lot of speculation in the stock market. The stock market's gone crazy. Jim Cramer, which is on CNBC, he's always talking about different stocks, and he says it's just unbelievable right now, the speculation. And what happens is that right now the Fed has put a lot of money into the economy, into people's pockets, and what's happening is people have this extra money and they're speculating and putting into the stock market, and it's going up. And a lot of well-known investors are just scratching their heads saying it's unbelievable because they weren't expecting that. And again, you can't time the market. You could never ever time the market, say it's going to definitely go down now or it's definitely going to go up. There's certain indications sometimes, but you could be off by 6 months up to a year for it to either go down or go up. But there's a lot of speculation going on. Now Hertz is one of the companies that's going bankrupt, and it hit its low, I forget, about a month ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2 months ago, and it was down to like 56 cents, something like that, and it shot up over 800%, they said, with this speculation, even though they were saying that they were going into bankruptcy, and then it came down again. So it's good if you had a 800% return. That's great, but again, a lot of times it's hard. The stock is riding up, and you're going, "Wow, this is great. I don't want to miss it." And anytime you say that is the worst thing you could do, is say, "I don't want to miss something." Again, I've been on that side. I did the same thing numerous times through the year, and you might catch it, but there's a lot of times eventually it's going to catch up to you. It's kind of like a casino. It's eventually going to catch up to you. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today is also passive investing. We've talked about this before. Is that if you're interested in investing in apartment buildings, we could do that as a joint venture, and I could talk to you more about it if you're interested. One of the other things that I'm looking for is any apartment buildings, complexes above 100 units. I'll do smaller, but I really would like anything over 100 plus units. So if you know of anyone, please tell me about it. You'll get a finder's fee. You get $1,000 for just notifying me, and if I buy that apartment or apartment buildings, I will give you that, as well as any house as well. So that's always out there. So anybody tells me about it and I close the deal, they will get their money. The other thing I want to talk about this week is a few things about inspections we had, some of our rehabs, how that's going. water in basements. So that's unfortunately near and dear to my heart, painfully near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to go over some of that at a couple of houses where I'm just getting lots of water coming in. It's very frustrating. I'll talk about that. I'm going to talk about our lines of credit and process for rehabs and reimbursement for you to understand that. I'm going to talk about attorneys and some of the issues sometimes I have with them. And one scenario that happened this week. I'm going to also talk to you about a condo I saw this week, a 1-bedroom, and it was pretty interesting. I think it's a short story that everybody might be interested in. Also, where the market's going with 1-bedrooms. I'm going to also talk about some market trends, employees with high-priced pays and where that might go, as well as, again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the stock market as well and commercial real estate and where we think that's going. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is inspections. So we had multiple inspections go on for multiple rehabs, and they seem to all go well. I've talked about this one town where they are very good. They're willing to work with you. Like I've said before, some towns are not as willing to work with you, and it's more of an adversarial type relationship. And as a result of that, I think a lot of times individuals, contractors, investors cut corners because of that. And when you make things harder, people go around it. I think a lot of people, if they could work jointly with a township official, it's going to be a lot easier. I'm not going to say that it's always going to be the case where people aren't going to cut corners. But if someone knows that there's a partnership in terms of getting something completed, it works a lot smoother. And it's just human nature. We, no matter what, if it's difficult or not, we will still pull the necessary permits and go the proper way. It's just, that's the way we do things, but not everyone does it that way, and I sometimes understand why. It's just such a challenge, and it takes so long, and as a result of that, time is money, basically. So you'll see a lot of investors that might cut corners a little bit. Some are very, will pull the permits like they should, but it doesn't always happen. And sometimes you get some shoddy work, things like that. And then it will come out also when you sell the property and you have an inspection, and they might say, well, what permits did you pull? And when you buy a property, you should always be asking for that, and you should always check it out, what permits. And you could use, it's an OPRA report, Open Public Records Access, I think it is, and it'll tell you all the permits that were pulled for the house from the beginning or when they started recording it, as well as any violations that occurred. They didn't cut the grass and they got fined for that, or any other type of violations given from the township to the person that owns the house. So when we buy the house, we apply for permits. So when you run an OPRA, you will see those permits. Sometimes they request that you send it to the attorney, and they won't even pull an OPRA. But when we purchase any house, we always pull an OPRA and we see for ourselves the entire history. And I always recommend doing that, and I think that's very, very important. Well, this segment is closing up. I will continue shortly. Thank you very much. Bye.
Life can be a roller coaster, and sometimes you need to sell your house fast. That's why there's TemplarBuysHouses.com. Maybe you're downsizing, getting a divorce, having health or financial issues. If so, head to TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com will buy your house quickly and without hassle. If you've inherited a house that is vacant, contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. Dealing with them is easy and quick. No high-pressure sales tactics, and you won't have to fix up the house. They will buy your house as is. You pick the closing date and when you move out. No commissions and no hassles. Contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Call 973-315-7990. That's 973-315-7990.
Be sure to listen to the podcast of the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Find it now at TemplarBuysHouses.com.
Hello, this is Joseph Zoppi, and welcome back to the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. So before I begin where I left off on the last segment, again, if you're interested in selling your house fast for cash, please give us a call, or you're interested in investing in real estate passively, please give us a call as well. Remember, passively is where you'll work with us, but you will not be active in the day-to-day operations of real estate and the transaction associated with it and the management of it. But you'll receive consistent returns as a result of that. If you find a deal that you want to joint venture with us, we'd be more than happy to look at it, so you could always give us a call on that as well. So let me get back to where I was left off in the last segment about township officials and working together. So as I said before, if you get a township official that works with you, it's just a pure pleasure. And I'm doing a rehab right now, and the township official knows me, and we've done other work there, and he's just a straight up great guy to work with. And I do have a relationship with him, but even if you did not, it would be just a pleasure working with them. And that's the difference with certain townships as compared to others. One thing that I brought up to him is that right now the property is moving along pretty quickly with the rehab, but the backyard and side yards, they don't look that nice. And there's different fences that surround the property, and I want to get top dollar for it. And so when you look out the backyard, it just doesn't look good. It's a little bit of an eyesore. One person has a vinyl fence, another one has a wood fence. So what we plan on doing is to put a vinyl fence around it, and it'll encase the yard, and it'll make it very attractive, as well as the landscaping that we're going to do, so on and so forth. So with that being said, is that traditionally you need to get a survey to understand where the property lines are, and to ensure that you're not going into someone else's property. Now, a lot of times, for the most part, if you encroach a little bit, you're not going to have an issue. But if you need to possibly get a loan and the mortgage company asks for a survey and they see something's on the other side, well, then you're going to have to address it. So with that being said, is I have a pretty good idea where our property lines are. And even with that being said, I'd probably put up the fence even a little bit closer in towards our property anyway. So I spoke to the township official for Department of Public Works, which handles all the outside work, and I said to him, I really don't want to get a survey, because it's going to cost another, I forget how much, $1,500, something like that, and it's going to take time, and we want to put this house on the market as quick as possible. And he said, Joe, this is all we'll do, is that you take pictures of the property and where you're going to plan on putting the fence, so I could take a look at it and see. He says, but just so you know, if the person you sell it to and the mortgage company wants a survey, and they see that it's encroaching on someone else's property, you're going to have to move the fence. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I have no issues with that. I have to do that. That's fine. But I don't expect that to happen. Again, I'll be moving the fence line in a little bit just to be on the conservative side. And if I lose a little bit, 6 inches or whatever it is, even a foot, about a foot and a half, it really doesn't matter. It's going to make everything look nicer, and it's going to push things through a little quicker. So I'm willing to take that risk. And even if I have to push it in a little bit, the cost to redo it's relatively inexpensive. So, that's great. And again, the township official was great with me. He was provided an alternative and said, okay, if something happens, this is going to be the risk you're going to take. And I'm fine with that. But, it was really just a good discussion. And, he wants the town to be improved, and he likes our product when we put it out. And that's the way it always should be. It's good to work with government instead of government working against you. And, I'm a big fan of working with the government instead of against it, but unfortunately that doesn't always happen. So another thing that's occurred this past couple weeks is that we have a couple of houses that we had some water previously, and just a little bit, and they were coming in the seams in the basement. Nothing major, but it was more of an annoyance. And both times I had some work done on the foundation on the outside, and everything seemed good. And all of a sudden, this past couple weeks, it's just like, there's 2 puddles, we're finishing one of the basements, and 2 of the corners, there's, some puddles in it. So, all of a sudden this happened. So, if I finish the basement, which I'm going to do, and I'm going to put some flooring down, that's going to be a problem. So now I got to install, unfortunately, probably 2 sump pumps, one in each corner, just to make sure to relieve any of the potential water that's under the slab, and, get it out of there, and ensure that, there's no additional groundwater coming in from the slab. But it's kind of frustrating. And the other property I had, there was a little bit localized in one corner, and then all of a sudden, within the last couple of weeks, it's been like around like 3/4 of the perimeter of the basement. So we had to excavate around the property and put some, seal it, and there was some holes in the foundation. Some of it deteriorated, so they had to fix that. It was very frustrating, and we thought, we only had to go so low, and then the water was still coming in, so they had to dig it again and go further down, and we're still having some challenges. It's been very, very frustrating. That's one of the biggest issues that we all know is water in the basement, and water is just, it finds its own level, and if there's a hole, it's going to find a way into that hole. And it's this mystery that it's just very frustrating. Anything to do with water is very, very, very frustrating. It seems like the past few years I've had more houses with water issues than ever before, and I just can't figure it out. I just really can't figure it out. So, one of the things that we have used before, we use individuals' money, private investors, to invest in our homes, but we also use lines of credit because we have so many houses going on at one time. So we use lines of credit for the acquisition of the house and also for the rehab. So once we do a certain amount of work, we'll send that over to the mortgage company or the lending institution, and then they'll come out and look at the work, and if a certain percentage was done, then we'll get reimbursed for that. And that's standard type of like construction type loan for that. But there's always that frustration because they'll come out and say, well, this wasn't done or this wasn't done, and we'll be going back and forth with the bank saying, well, that wasn't part of what we agreed upon in terms of the scope of work. So that's always a challenge that we have, and we just had one the other day where an inspector came out and he was saying, well, this isn't done and this isn't done, and we're saying, basically that you already signed off on that last time, some of the outside work, and he says, well, it's not completed. And we said, yeah, because we said it was only going to be 75% complete, and that's what we want to get paid for. But that's always the challenge when you're dealing with banks and construction loans and trying to substantiate the work that needed to be done. And there's always that fight. Sometimes I don't have an issue, but there's always probably 40% of the time there's always a challenge with that. And we want to get paid for it. We did the work, and we want to get reimbursed for it. And we have the money that we've been loaned to, but it comes in a timely fashion for the most part, but not always. The other thing I want to talk about briefly before we close out this last segment is attorneys. So attorneys are great in terms of ensuring they protect you. That's one thing that's very, very important. But also is that sometimes you need to, challenge them because they don't know everything. And I was told this a very long time ago, is that attorneys aren't good business people. They might know the legalities of a contract and enforcing a contract, but that doesn't mean they are good in terms of, and if you're relying on them for a business decision. And I was told that a long time ago, and I took that to heart probably 20 years ago. So when I have an issue, I do challenge my attorney, and if I want something a certain way, it's not, well, it can't be done. I want to know how it can be done. So I had this case in point where one of my contractors had an extra condenser for a AC unit. So we have a house under contract, and we offered that condenser plus installation to the homeowner. And they said, great, we were thinking of getting a AC unit anyway, so that would be good. And it was priced very competitively, extremely competitively, and they were very happy about that. But then they spoke to the attorney, and the attorney was concerned about two things. The appraisal or the money was requested for the mortgage was a certain amount of money, and then we said, well, you have to add that additional compressor and the work associated with it. So he was worried about the appraisal, which I could understand to some extent, and he was also worried about how he would word it in the contract, because we wanted to do it after we sold the house. I wasn't going to install the unit before, and then something happens, and then I'm stuck with a unit installed that I don't want installed, and then I got to pay for it. So we wanted to keep the money in escrow, close on the deal, and then after that install the compressor. So the attorney pushed back on the individuals that were buying the property and said, well, I'm not sure how to word it and stuff. And when I hear things like that, it just kind of gets me kind of crazy, because I don't look at things that way. I look at how can we do it, or how can it be done. I don't want to hear, from my attorney or some other way, or contractor, it can't be done. Tell me how it can, or how to work it so it can. Maybe this exact scenario has to be worked a little differently, but just by saying you can't do it, that's just it kind of gets me crazy. You have individuals in New York City purchasing billion-dollar properties. How can they purchase a billion-dollar property? You know how complex that is, and we can't figure out how to put something in there for a compressor that's $7,500. So that kind of stuff just gets me a little crazy. So I got to close up today and close out on this radio show for today. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please give us a call at 973-315-7990. That's Templar Real Estate Enterprises. You could Google us and give us a call, please. And again, if you want to sell your house fast or you want to sell an apartment complex, please give us a call. Thank you very much and God bless.
Life can be a roller coaster, and sometimes you need to sell your house fast. That's why there's TemplarBuysHouses.com. Maybe you're downsizing, getting a divorce, having health or financial issues. If so, head to TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com will buy your house quickly and without hassle. If you've inherited a house that is vacant, contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. Dealing with them is easy and quick. No high-pressure sales tactics, and you won't have to fix up the house. They will buy your house as is. You pick the closing date and when you move out. No commissions and no hassles. Contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Call 973-315-7990. That's 973-315-7990.
Be sure to listen to the podcast of the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Find it now at TemplarBuysHouses.com.
The preceding program was paid for by Templar Real Estate. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the staff and management of WMTR. As always, it is advisable to consult a professional before making a major decision.